Hello there, everybody. WhatCulture, Clery's Adam Wrestling here. And do you know what they did? They said that we could go back into pubs in the UK. So I went back into a pub, and I wish I hadn't gone back into a pub, to be totally honest. But me taking a giant swig of water this morning and going bleh to one side for a second, NXT is back from its great American bash diversion. It has bashed all it could bash, and it shall bash no more until they need to counter-program AEW for 2 weeks. But we are back to our regularly scheduled broadcasting and back to reality. Get it? Like NXT, reality. Yeah, you get it anyway. And there was a bumper week in store with championship matches and grudges to be settled. The kind of thing that would have been really good on like a really overstretched second night of a 2-week extravaganza. But what do I know about booking wrestling, eh? Not even that, Adam. But regardless, I really want to go for a tiny little nap, so let's get up to our nuts in it. My name is Adam Clery, hashtag on Thursdays, we wear yellow. Ooh, this is new, and these are all the ups and downs for this week's episode of NXT. No gimmicks this week, by the way. None at all. I've got a hangover, that's the gimmick. We kick things off this week, tragically not with the sight of a shakaroni pizza, although I'm sure that'll be along before too long, and Keith Lee comes down to the ring to allow us all to bask in his shiny glory. And you know what? This should have sucked. Keith Lee and Dominik Deijokovic have been in the ring together no less than 6 times in 2020 alone, and that's like wrestling matches where Keith Lee has come out on top every single time they faced each other. That doesn't include all the promos, all the packages, all the stare downs, all the back pats, all the we're best friends really, aren't we buddy stuff. It got really old a long time ago, and they kept going on with it, and it just was still really very old. So I did not want to see this at all. I did not want this match again. If they told us they were going to do it a week in advance, my eyes would have rolled so far back into my skull, The Undertaker would have sued. And yet there was just something about the way they did this that made it good and likeable, and it worked. Basically, Keith Lee gave us this long, rousing, long overdue speech about how wrestling is actually really good and we should probably all be supporting it while the rest of the world is terrible. Then he got onto how nobody is a self-made man, which is something I very much agree with. He paid tribute to his trainer Tim Brooks, who sadly passed away recently, and then turned his attention to the WWE Universe, who he said were really great, but then turned his attention to the man with whom he's had the rivalry, which he credits with him getting the opportunity that led to him getting all the belts. Did you follow that? So he did. He got him out. He was like, look, I would not be in this position without you. So do you know what? Do you want a shot at these 2 belts right here tonight? And we booked the match there and there. And just, if it had been the other way round, if it had been Deijokovic being like, hey, without wrestling me, you would never have got this opportunity. I want a shot at those belts. I would have been like, no, pass, don't like it. But this is Keith Lee's celebration. I like the idea that the week removed from beating Adam Cole, he can do whatever the hell he wants. So he wants to pay tribute to his brother in arms. I quite liked it. Look, bottom line here, I had zero interest in seeing this match again, but there was enough of a, yeah, alright, let's see factor in this that, well, yeah, alright, let's see. Up. Oh, there he is. There's the Shaka. Can I just actually take this opportunity to say, by the way, if you are watching this, Papa John's, and I know you are, the shakaroni in the US looks so much nicer than any pizza you currently have on your UK menu. So if you could just knock one of these up for me, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, moving on, Darren Grimes versus Cameron Priest. I know what I said, and where the hell was this last week? On a show that, let's not forget, was absolutely crying out for some kind of hard-hitting, feud-furthering, meat-slapping wrestling match that felt like it had actual stakes, this was deemed less important than Tony Nese versus Bronson Reed or Mercedes Martinez versus Santana Garrett. Like, with all due respect to those 4 wrestlers, those matches could have easily waited for TV this week, while this necessitated having a really big stage. And by a really big stage, I mean taking place next to some balloons. But that being said, last week's loss was this week's gain, and we got an absolutely brilliant match, in my opinion. Like, Priest, back from injury, should have had far too much physicality to overcome Cameron Grimes, but they've done such a good job of protecting the cave-in that you were like, could beat him, could come, Might happen. Now, this intrigue went back and forth, as did the match, but Priest picked up the win whilst managing to avoid that devastating finisher. And I'll say this, right? That man really, really needed a win, because prior to this, he has, go on, guess, how many wins on TV in 2020? Any guesses? Any guesses? Anyone? I live alone? One other win on TV this year. He needed that. But regardless, Cameron Grimes remains one of the most entertaining things on the roster. The match itself was one of the most entertaining things on the show. I'm giving it an up. Obviously, this wasn't meant to get caught on the camera, but did anybody else notice Cameron Grimes just tickle Damian Priest's gooch as he was getting pinned there? I saw you, buddy. Oh, it pains me. It really does pain me to bring the down hammer onto anything even remotely resembling Shotty Blackheart, because I'm sorry, that whole ow, ow, ow stuff is still piss funny to me, and it pains me even more to bring the down hammer on something as nice as Indy Hartwell's first big win. But just let me explain. Feels like every single time we take one step forward with the Robert Stone brand, we then, well, have a tank run over our legs. Don't get me wrong, the match in isolation was fine. The interference spot in isolation was fine, but the whole premise here is that Robert Stone goes out and he is able to get his clients opportunities they wouldn't otherwise get. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is "you ran over my manager's legs with your tank, you bitch" not more of a good reason to have a match than just "you interfered in a meaningless TV contest"? Like, what they've done here is they already had the match. Aaliyah versus Shotty Blackheart could have just easily happened whenever you wanted it to, and now they've added this weird extra step, which undermines all of Shotty's momentum she had going into it, and makes Indy Hartwell's win seem really hollow and completely false, and also makes Aaliyah look dumb because the challenge was there, the match was made. Why does she now have to go out and do... It didn't make any sense. The only way it does make sense is if this is purely a filler segment designed to drag out the story for weeks longer than it really needs to, and lo and behold, it actually was just a filler segment designed to drag out the story for weeks longer than it needed to. So sorry, it pains me, but I give this a down. I'm just going to bundle two things together here because they're pretty much the exact same concept. There's not really been too much to say about Timothy Thatcher's, training school segments at the minute, other than they are quiet and they are effective. They are entertaining because they're different, but they're not so long that they get boring, and I've quite enjoyed them without really remembering them too much. But if they're going to start folding elements of them into his matches and make the stuff we hear in these training segments relevant to the contests themselves, then that's very, 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 very good and very interesting. He went back to the Oni Lorcan match and talked about how he had him in the submission hold, but then he pulled harder to teach him a lesson. Then later in the night, he was wrestling Denzel Dejonet, put him in the submission hold, and was going to do that until Lorcan stopped him. So it's all informing itself and feeding into it. It's very clever. I also like what they're doing here because Lorcan was a brawler, but Thatcher made him tap out. And Dejonet is a wrestler, but Thatcher made him tap out. And I would really like to see him just have a run of different style wrestlers like Nice, Reed, Tozawa. There's loads of people who are very different, and make them all tap out. Overcome every different type of pro wrestler with just being Timothy Thatcher. That would be really good. So yeah, it's quietly building to something very interesting. This one, giving the match, the segment, the whole thing, one nice big fat up. And the show was just absolutely flying along at this point. No loads of small matches, no random filler segments. Backstage, everything long and substantial and pretty much good. So here we are already, Keith Lee versus Dominik Deijokovic for the 8 millionth time this year. And you know what? It was just two big lads, two big mates, just having a big old meat slapper match for those two shiny belts. Not a super serious TV main event TM, or please Dave, just a crumb of 5-star takeover match. Just two big lads, two big mates having a big meaty slappy match for two big, nice, big shiny belts. And there were some great spots in this, genuinely just ha ha ha, yes, I love wrestling moments. Like Keith Lee calling back to him, crashing through the barricade, but stopping himself this time. And then he just picked up Deijokovic with one hand. The dude weighs nearly 300 pounds and just tossed him about like a proverbial empty tracksuit. And then that shoulder charge where he hit him so hard, I realised that if he'd done that to me, air crash investigators would have to identify whatever was left. And there wouldn't be much of it. I would, yes, have been really sniffy about the concept of this match if they'd announced it in advance, but the way they booked it earlier in the show, where it's Keith Lee just going, look, I want to wrestle you because I'm the champ, and I can do whatever the hell I like. I really like that. And then the match wasn't too much. They weren't trying to go above and beyond stuff they've done before. They weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. They were just doing loads of fun, entertaining spots and just about kept the notion that Deijokovic could do it alive for long enough. Like, I'd never really buy it, but they did enough. And you know what? We got a nice, clean finish where they were like, we're still mates, and it's not just some means to an end weird heel turn moment, and nobody interfered. It's not setting up something else. This is just Keith Lee wanted to do this match. So there we go. We got the match, and it was really entertaining. I absolutely adored this, and I thought I was going to hate it. Give it an up. And then, of course, putting Scarlett Bordeaux in things to remind him that the real challenges actually lie ahead. Along with that, well, what was it? She put a thing in the ring. I didn't really see what that was. It looked like every mobile phone I've had after about 18 months of ownership. If you know what that was, comments please. It just looked like a mess to me. And then, of course, Deijokovic got brutalized by Cameron Cross backstage, and I need to see that match, please. I need it to not end well for Deijokovic. You've got all the pieces are here, just do it. Anyway, yes, back to my original point. They've made Keith Lee feel like he's been champion for 3 years with this match, and they completely rehabilitated Deijokovic after he's had a really bad 2020 as well. So, do you know what? If you'd asked me to predict how this would have gone, I would have said very bad things, and I would have been completely wrong. Well done, boys. Handshakes all around. Right, here you go, tonight's main event, and I'll just say it, there is no better division in pro wrestling on the planet right now than the NXT women's division. Like, they just went and plucked Tegan Nox out of the mid-card, plucked her out of a very indifferent 2020 and went, right, there you go, 20 minutes, do us something that would be genuinely considered one of the top takeover matches for this belt ever, and do it on telly. Oh, telly, by the way, for our American viewers, is what we call the television. Although this, of course, we call a doofer, so the more you know. Do you know what? There would have been no believability in Nox causing a huge upset here a couple of weeks ago, but just the narrative that went into it, all the talk about the adversity she's overcome, the injuries here and there, the way she won that number 1 contenders thing, 1 week of build alone, and they got you. You thought she was going to do it. I thought she was going to do it. She didn't, of course, but allowing Io to get into a more vicious, devious side to allow Nox to play the, inspiring underdog babyface was a really, really nice touch. The role she should have had in this company for the last couple of years had injury not robbed her of it. And while we're on that subject, having both women selling their knees in this match, Io more than her, if anything, was one of the best storytelling beats I think I've seen on NXT in a very good time. It's subtle, very subtle, but delicious. Like, all that heartache, all those setbacks, everything informed every single near fall in this match. And when she went for that shiniest wizard, you just thought, she's going to do it. McGill, she's actually going to do it. But no, kapow! Palm strike in the face, moonsault, and that was that. And I tell you what, if we are in for an entire summer of Io Shirai just having 15 or 20 minute bangers with assorted women on this roster, then my God, friends, what a time to be alive. Up, Yellow Jacket, give it the lot. And just in case you were wondering who might be next for Io Shirai, kapow! It's Dakota Kai, and what a wonderful next opponent. They are doing God's own work in this women's division at the minute, and I am so privileged, so pleased to be along for the ride. Sort of. So, there you have it. That is an entire episode of NXT. Very, precise and to the point and trimmed of all the fat this week. I could get used to that, but let me know what you made of it all in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But before I go, very quickly, just want to say a huge thank you yet again to every single person who has sponsored me for this running thing I'm doing, or has just sent me a kind word here and there. We are trying to raise some money for Mind, who are a mental health charity here in the UK, because lockdown has been hard and very difficult, and we need to get kind of support of people who are going to need it because the connections have been tied off. I went through this all last week, and we have raised £1,800, which is like $2,000 or something, in a week. I do not understand that, but I have a long way to go for running. And reminder, this is what my knees sound like. Oh! Anyway, yes, I'll stick the link in the description again if you want to find out more about it. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. All that really hurt. I have, of course, been Adam Clery. Hashtag on Thursdays. We wear yellow. Viva NXT. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.